All right, good morning, everyone. I'm John Berman.
And I'm Poppy Harlow. Top of the hour in a looming legal showdown with unprecedented implications. This morning, the president's legal team is preparing for the possibility that the special counsel could subpoena the president. It would be a truly stunning move, and a move that we now know from our reporting Bob Mueller discussed with the president's legal team in at least one meeting. Let's make legal sense of all of this. Seth Waxman is here. He's criminal defense attorney, former federal prosecutor. I have so many questions. Let me just get off the bat your reaction to this potential presidential subpoena, and if it's fought, the fact that it could go all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are the next steps that come if Mr. Trump refuses to sit down for this voluntary interview. You know, the only power that Mr. Mueller has to compel that testimony is a grand jury subpoena, so it would be issued. And if Mr. Trump's team would move to quash that subpoena, we'd have a battle up into including the Supreme Court, and that would frankly, delay things. I don't think it would take years, which typical cases, take to get up to the Supreme Court, but clearly at least months.
And there are several steps here, right? The subpoena would have to be issued. The president would have to fight it. The Supreme Court would have to weigh in and say, yes, you are compelled to testify or answer questions if that is what they decide. And then the president could say, okay, I'm asserting my Fifth Amendment rights.
Yeah.
What happens then?
Yeah, he absolutely can do that. He can assert his Fifth Amendment rights, but I want to put it clear that this is not a typical criminal case. I mean, the remedy of asserting your Fifth Amendment rights is essentially a criminal jury trial would never hear that you asserted your Fifth. It could not be used against you in a court of law. But of course, this is the President of the United States. And frankly, the ultimate arbiters in this case, or deciders, could ultimately be Congress and the American people in impeachment proceedings. So if he pleads the Fifth, that has to have at least some political fallout and ramifications.
Okay, but Seth, politics aside, just legally speaking here, let's take that one step further. If the president were to assert his Fifth Amendment right and Bob Mueller in response were to grant him immunity, that could happen. Would that happen? You only grant immunity to someone because you want their help in getting a bigger fish, but he's the biggest fish, right?
Correct. I mean, as a former federal prosecutor, I can tell you, you would not typically immunize the ultimate target or the person at the top of the pyramid in your criminal investigation. So I think immunization is something that is entirely unlikely. So if he pleads the Fifth, I think Bob Mueller would be stuck, at least as it relates to interviewing him, but then it would be up to the American people in Congress to decide what's the impact of the President of the United States, who's essentially saying, I've done something wrong, I've got criminal exposure, and I don't want to talk about it. That's what you're saying when you plead the Fifth.
Remember, he
said that as much.
Right, he has said exactly that. He's a subject, he's been told here. He's not the target of the investigation. I suppose that could change. Seth, how far do you think Robert Mueller will press this? I mean, so much of this depends on how hard he's willing to fight on this issue.
Well, I think he'll go all the way on this one. I mean, any part of a criminal investigation is to talk to the key witnesses. And, typically in any normal criminal case, the defendant would or target would plead the Fifth, and that'd be the end of it. But in this particular case, Mr. Trump's a little bit between a rock and a hard place because of the political ramifications. So if he, wants to get, I think Bob Mueller will push that all the way to the Supreme Court, because getting in the room with your subject or target of your investigation is a critical aspect of any prosecutorial investigation. And putting aside any kind of perjury trap, I mean, you get to see your opponent live. You get to question him on all these very important intent questions. So I don't think Mr. Mueller is going to pass on that, in addition to the precedent it would set. Mr. Mueller is a person that's been in the justice system for decades. I think he has a view to the future, and if he were to walk away from this battle, I think it would set a dangerous precedent for the future of this country, that a president could essentially thwart or intimidate a special prosecutor into backing down from a grand jury subpoena.
Seth Waxman, great discussion. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.